We're live.
We're live. Hello and welcome to Shooting the Shit. We've just lost Bev's video and we're late and Rachel's had to run across 3 acres in Wellies. Oh, Bev's back.
Yeah.
Very well. We just said to Bev, don't worry about being professional because we really aren't. And there we go.
And it all went to pot.
So, hello. Today we are talking about the menopause. It is menopause. What is it, Bev, coming up? Menopause Awareness Week.
Yeah.
So it's Menopause Awareness Month all through October and World Menopause Day on the 18th, so next Monday.
There you go. So to celebrate World Menopause Month, we thought we'd get a menopause expert on to chat with us because I, for one, am woefully ignorant about the menopause and it's galloping. I'm galloping towards it. So it's something that, you know, I feel like I need to be more aware of. And speaking to Bev just highlighted how little I actually know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought we would have a chat with Bev. So let's go around and say who we all are. Bev, we'll start with you, please.
Okay, thanks, Hannah. So Bev Thorogood, I'm a menopause trainer and a coach, which is a job title I never expected to have ever in my life. But I've been doing this now for the last 3.5 years, and I'll tell you a bit about why I do that in a little while. So I'm the director of a business called Fresco Training Limited, specialising in menopause awareness for businesses.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Has anything exciting or funny happened to you this week?
It's only Monday.
I know.
Loads of time for everything to go wrong yet. Do you know what? It's apart from losing my camera at a very inopportune moment, it's been a pretty normal day so far today. A bit of training delivery and lots of marketing stuff. So let's hope, fingers crossed, the rest of the week goes as calmly.
Yeah, sometimes all you want is normal, isn't it? Yeah. Rachel?
Yeah. Oh, Rachel Weinhold, one of the directors of Grow Traffic, which is a search marketing agency, one of the founders of Shooting the Shit, Feminism Plus Business Channel, Sir Optimist, chair of the Baker Business Association, owner of the Wabbit. He's the cutest Wabbit ever.
Rachel, you've just trained your rabbit to pass you items, haven't you?
Yes, he passes you things. If you put them in front of him, he will put them into your hand. Yes, he's a very clever rabbit.
Reish?
Hi everybody. So I'm Meriesha. I have a telecoms consultancy company and I do telecoms as well, so very male orientated, so it's nice to come on here and chat about all the things. I also make marmalade, and you know, so far this week I have been making Christmas cakes actually, so you know, I'm working. It's very festive here.
I started my Christmas shopping this weekend. I know, never happened before. I just thought, Brexit, I'm going to start it early. Panic buy.
How can we make this Christmas even more miserable? We'll start it in October.
In my defence, I try and get ahead because like the Christmas cakes I make are 90% alcohol by the time I've finished. So if I start them early enough, then there's, you know, slightly less rush.
And we need
a confession. I have never made a Christmas cake in my whole life.
Oh,
no, same.
That's because people like me will make them.
I think it could be because the alcohol would never make it to the cake. That's probably why.
This is true. This is also true.
I just think as well, you can buy it in the Aldi. Like, I don't want to.
Oh my God, get out. Okay, just get her off. Cut her off. I'm not. That's it. Finished.
Well, let us know if you've made your own Christmas cake.
There we go.
Get your professional
Menopause
help.
and Christmas cake. That's what we should have called this episode.
And I am Hannah. I'm also a director of Grow Traffic. I'm not going to bash on about all the other things I do because I'm not as egotistical as Rachel. And everyone in my house has either got COVID or is trying to avoid COVID. So it's good fun times. But I know, but you know, everyone's fine. It had to come eventually, didn't it? So. So what do you know about the menopause, Meriesha?
Not a great deal, in all honesty. It's mainly, you know, stuff that's kind of mentioned in passing, you know, having a hot flush and that's pretty much it. But also been made aware more recently, like over the past, maybe 4 or 5 years, about, perimenopause as well. And again, but it's mainly in name as opposed to anything else, like how it actually affects people and things like that. I don't really know. And, I will go off on a rant about female hormones and how we know nothing about them, but I'll leave it at that for today.
Well, no, we're here for the rant
today.
Yeah, she's being modest. She's going to rant any minute.
I will. It's there.
Well, I was like you. I knew absolutely nothing, and I was just staggered, really. And I don't know why. When I read that there's 13 million women in the UK at any one time with symptoms, and they've got loads of statistics here, but there's 13 million women in the UK with symptoms of menopause, and 9 out of 10 women say that they're frightened to talk to their manager about the menopause. So there's like gazillions of women.
Do you know what baffles me as well? Is like when we are at school and we are having, sex education, PSHE, learning about your bodies and all that, obviously we are at the point when you're at high school that you are going to go through puberty if you're not already going through it. So it makes sense to learn about puberty and what happens when your periods start and how your body changes and how babies are made. But then it just stopped. I don't remember ever anybody speaking to me about what would happen to my body kind of post babies. It was like, this is how you have a baby. This is what you do. If you are a girl, you will have a baby. Your body will prepare for a baby. If you don't have a baby, you'll have a period. And then nothing. And it's just crackers because you think, again, every woman that goes through starting a period, goes through puberty, is going to go through the menopause. Why do we not learn about this? It's crackers.
Yeah, the menopause was just something that like Nan and Mum talked about until you walked into the room, and then they stopped talking.
Well, it always reminds me of that Victoria Wood sketch where she's on about, if something went wrong down there, you kept your gob shut, you turned the wireless up, and it was that attitude, wasn't it? It's just women's issues. Don't talk about it. Women's issues.
Yeah.
And
it's about the hormones, because we don't talk about it enough. The good news is, Rachel, that as of September last year, menopause is on the school curriculum.
Brilliant.
Which is great. How they'll actually talk about it, I don't know. Let's hope they do it accurately, because there's a whole load of rubbish talked about the menopause.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, though. I mean, I'm 55 now, 56 in January. I started to learn about this stuff when I was 50. Would I have been that interested when I was 12, 13, 14 about what's going to happen to me 40 years up the road? I don't think I would. I think it would have been good to know. It would have closed the loop, but I'd have forgotten about it. And now I'm menopausal. If they told me last week, I'd have forgotten about it anyway. I can't remember anything for more than 3 days. But that's why I think there's a massive scope to, with so many women working, 80% of menopausal women are in work. So the workplace is a great place to intervene and give us that education. And there's other places, we all have smear tests. We all have to have our boobs trapped between iron
that
things,
hurts.
Don't they, when we have a mammogram. So there's loads of reasons why women have to visit the GP that we could get educated if GPs knew what they were talking about as well.
But the other thing as well, I think it just comes down to demystifying, because just by the nature that we are enabled at school to talk about periods, but they're not allowed to talk about them. It's just never mentioned. It just never enters our lexicon, our normal womanly conversation. And as you say, Hannah, those older generations, they shut up about it when you came into the room. It was, something secretive. And even just by whether or not they teach it well at school, whether or not kids have forgotten about it by the time they take their A-levels, just by the fact that we've talked about it has got to be a good thing in opening up that conversation, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to do a pop quiz in a minute, but one of the kind of questionnaires I was reading, a lot of the feedback from it was that women are wrongly diagnosed when they go to the doctor, and they're wrongly diagnosed with depression. So it's not being talked about in schools. It's not being taught about to doctors.
Well, did you know it's an elective when you are a GP doing your training, and GPs go through however many 6-7 years worth of mandatory training? The menopause is an elective syllabus that they do not have to take, which to me is terrifying.
It is absolutely terrifying. Right, quick pop quiz. And Bev, you're not allowed to answer these. I'm sorry, because you might know the answers already.
Because I might get it wrong.
How long can a menopause last for? Up to?
Ooh, I'm going to say 20 years. Oh no, but
Rachel.
the actual menopause or the symptoms.
The symptoms. For how long can the symptoms last?
I'm going to stick with 20 years.
Yeah, I would say 10.
Bev, do you know the answer?
There's not a definitive. There's never a definitive when it comes to menopause. It could be anywhere between 5 and probably 20. To be honest, yeah.
I read that on average it can last up to about 15 years. 15 years, guys. 15 is such a huge chunk of your life.
Exactly, and that's it. And coming back to my point, which I'm going to continue to labour, you go, puberty is what, 3 years? And then your periods are started and they're fairly regular and you're all right. 15 years of our lives is massive. We could have birthed a child and they're almost left home in that period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. How many symptoms of the menopause do you think that there are?
Oh,
according to this facts that I found on this website.
On Wikipedia. How many symptoms?
Menopausesupport.co.uk.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with a lot because I always think of they break things down really kind of nichely, don't they? So I'm going to go with about 30.
I would say, I would kind of group them. So I'd say probably about 10, but they're varying degrees of, that fit within that. So
yeah, I would have thought about 5 maybe. Bev, do you know?
I do. There's at least 34. But it doesn't. If you speak to different experts, they'll give you a different 34. So it's probably more than 34. And some of them are symptoms of just getting older anyway, and they get lumped together. But there's a significant number.
It is, that really is. And then last question, and then we'll move on. What percentage of women do you think feel unsupported at work when they go through the menopause? According to menopausesupport.co.uk.
I would say I have not yet met a woman who has felt supported at work, and I would be surprised on their quiz if they'd met the ones that do. So I'm going to say 100%.
I mean, there are some women that are getting support because Bev has a business that goes in and teaches managers how to support women.
Yes, but what are the chances that website asked them? That's the point.
Oh, you're gaming the system. Go on, Reesh. What do you think? What percentage?
I would say, sorry, was it that do feel or don't feel?
That don't feel.
Don't. I would say probably a good 75%.
Bev, do you know?
I think you asked the question, you answered yourself. I think, didn't you, earlier? It's about 90%.
Oh, according to Menopause Support, it's 72%, but then 1 in 9 say that they can't talk to their manager. So how is this?
Suggest that they're not feeling supported, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So
the problem with any stats like that is it's only as good as the people they've talked to.
Exactly.
But I know an awful lot of women really struggle. But to your point, Rachel, there are some that are doing a really, really good job. But we're talking about cultural change. We're talking about something that just hasn't been talked about for such a long time. And there's good movement happening. There's a lot of conversations being had now. So there is a bit of a sea change, I think, happening, which is good.
Hopefully.
Go on, Rara.
Well, I was just going to say, I watched the Davina McCall documentary that was on Channel 4 recently, and I know at the end of that they were saying that the Met Police have started having a proper menopause HR strategy, and some other organisations. But you just said, Bev, it's seismic change that is needed, because actually this is akin to women going through the childhood years, isn't it? That you need time off, you need to job share, you need to go part-time. So when you think about that from an employer's point of view, those are massive structural changes that you then need to make within the work. It's not just like, oh, let's have some ice in the freezer and we'll have a chair that they can go and have a sit down in. It's we need to take on more staff. We need to change our policies. It's huge things for an employer, isn't it?
It can be. I think small changes can make a big difference, though. I don't think they have to. I think culturally there has to be a seismic change. You're absolutely right. We've got to really, but that's about more than just menopause. That's about women's reproductive health across the board.
In general.
Yeah.
But in reality, in the workplace, very small changes can make a massive difference to whether women can remain productive and feeling, that they're performing at their best. It doesn't have to be big. But there's definitely a narrative around the whole thing that needs to change.
What are some of the problems, do you think, Bev, that women face in the workplace when they're going through the menopause?
I think fear of judgment is a big one. Fear of, they've let's face it, however equal we think the workplace should be, women still have to fight for their place throughout their career. So letting go of that, or the fear of letting go of that fight when you get to the point where you've reached menopause, which often coincides with the pinnacle of well, not necessarily the pinnacle, because that suggests that it's downhill from there. But, women are getting to the peak of their career. And worried about judgment, worried about being seen as weak or incapable, or like their competences in some way impaired. So I think there's a danger, there's a perception by women themselves, I think, that they're going to be judged badly.
I can completely understand that, though. I mean, sorry to interrupt, Bev, but
no,
if I've spent 30 years climbing, especially if I was in, like a corporate job, say I was in finance or the law or something, and it has taken me all of those years of working hard and, getting a nanny for my children and doing absolutely everything to get myself to that point. And then all of a sudden you're having to say, Jesus Christ, I can't remember my own name this morning. I can't do this job. The psychological impact of suddenly having to admit that, even to yourself, and then having to admit that to your work colleagues must be terrifying, mustn't it?
Although in reality, there's no evidence to suggest that brain fog, that kind of memory loss or anything actually has any impact on intellect or intelligence. It's not about an inability to do your job. It just means we have to work a hell of a lot harder because it's exhausting when you've got everything else going on.
Having spent 30 years already working twice as hard as the man sat next to you. Yeah.
And do you think then that it makes it worse that there's no scientific evidence that it impairs ability, the brain fog, because you can't kind of point at something definitive and say, this is what it is, this is why I feel like this?
Well, I think there is a lot of sort of science behind the fact that hormone fluctuations impact cognitive function, but not intellect. So I think when women are kind of struggling with memory issues and with word recall issues, which is what a lot of women feel that they're failing in, because they've probably always been able to keep everything they need to know in their head. They can stand up and talk about their subject with ease, and then all of a sudden they're forgetting simple words like rice and chicken or whatever it is, really simple words. So I think there's a perception that they're going to be seen to be failing. But in reality, there's, and there is evidence to show that estrogen levels dropping and testosterone levels dropping do kind of mess with the working function of the brain. But actually, I've found in the work that I do, because of course I stand up in front of rooms full of people and talk about this, and invariably I forget my words. I think part of it is stress. As soon as you start to stress about the fact that you might look stupid, or you might, that you're going to be judged, what it's like when you feel stressed, your logical brain goes out the window and you're just left with this kind of jelly wreck of a brain. So if we can manage the whole stress response to it, and that comes from talking about it and normalizing it. Yeah. So no longer are we having to worry about the fact that people aren't aware of what's happening. They know what it's all about. They recognize it's a normal thing. So then that stress comes down and you can continue to perform, because you can't perform well when you're stressed. It doesn't matter whether you're menopausal or not. Your brain doesn't function well logically when it's in that fight or flight response. So I think I've got off at a tangent. Sorry.
No, really interesting.
We're all there.
But that normalising it, that's absolutely.
We're all like,
We're all like, normalising it is absolutely the first step, and it's what we said before. But I saw a photograph of some of my friends. So there was about 8 friends. They'd gone to this special event. They put it on Facebook. Most of them them were stuck there. It was obviously like a cold autumn day. Most of them were there in their coats and their scarves and their woolly hats and their gloves on. And one of them was just stood there in a strappy dress. And I nearly commented, I was like, spot the menopausal woman, because I know she is a menopausal woman and I know she will have been having a hot flush because I know her. And then I was like, I can't comment that on Facebook because she might be embarrassed and it might not be appropriate. So I didn't. But then afterwards I was like, why can't we laugh about the fact that, we're bloody having hot flushes left, right and centre. And it's just, we've got to reach a point where that is just a normal thing that you can say. But then again, we can't even say like, oh, I'm on my period, I'm having a bad day properly yet, can we? So
the little bloody woman's problems.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I think, do we laugh about it too much? Is the menopause a punchline to some things? Like again, Victoria Wood, was she not saying that she knew she was menopausal when she passed some Dr. Scholl sandals and thought they look comfy?
Yeah.
A lot of our life comes from Victoria Wood or Monty Python. So.
Yeah. But then again, that is the first stage to normalising it, isn't it? Because comedy is at the vanguard of society's, anathemas, and we start by having that kind of tentative laugh at things, and then they enter the normal, language. The scary thing is that Victoria Wood started laughing about this in the 70s and the 80s, and we're still at a point where we can't talk about it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's that, do we laugh? It's that old thing, are you laughing at or are you laughing with? And I think if you're laughing with it, that's great. If you're laughing at somebody about it, and I think a lot of women feel they're being laughed at, and that's the problem, I think. And I worked for 32 years for the Air Force. There's no way I could have got through 32 years working in a very male dominated environment without the banter and the fun and the sometimes quite sort of gallows humor that goes with that. I guess it depends where that humor is coming from and the intention behind it. Is it derision and belittling, or is it actually, come on, we're all in this together, we can have a joke about this? And the latter, I think, is essential. I don't even think it's a good to have. I think it's an essential. But I think a lot of the time women don't feel like they can laugh about it because I don't know.
Sometimes
it's not spoken about.
It's not spoken about, and sometimes it's not funny. As well, if you are, if you are struggling and you are feeling, because depression is a symptom. So whilst it might be misdiagnosed as depression, you can genuinely be depressed. So you might be feeling really low and really fat and really like you can't remember your name and you've got a headache and you've got no motivation and all the rest of it. And at that point, it isn't appropriate for somebody to go, oh, she's bloody having a hot flush.
I think as well, sometimes it can feel a bit dismissive, I suppose. Like I have a 1-year-old, and for probably the last 12 and a half months, there has been a touch of baby brain, which I do believe now is a scientific thing. But if I'm really struggling and people say, oh, it's baby brain again, I think, no, fuck off, it's not baby brain. It is baby brain, but I don't want it to be dismissed as baby brain because I'm not any worse than I was. I just need a second
just
for
give
my
me a
brain
minute
to catch up. Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing, Hannah. You've really hit on a good point there, because yes, baby brain is real, and it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same issues that perimenopausal women feel, which is the fluctuating levels of our sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. They're all over the place. And if you think what happens when you give birth, Jesus, you put your hormones through, a roller coaster ride. So it is real. The problem is when we talk about it, it's dismissed as if it's not really impactful. But it is impactful, and it does make, it very, very hard sometimes just to do the basics, because you've got this cloudy. I always think it's like photographing through silk because you just can't see all the detail of things, and it is real. And I think that's the difference when it comes to the humour. As long as we acknowledge that we're not deriding it, we're not belittling it, we're recognising it. Fine balance though.
It is, yeah. And I think, it does depend on where you're feeling as well. Like, if I'm having a good day, and I know not to make all this about me and baby brain, but like if you're having an all right day, then it's fine when someone says, oh, it's baby brain, because they're empathizing with me. when I was in the kind of throes of postnatal depression and someone would say, oh, it's baby brain, I'd be like, right, not baby brain, I'm perfectly fine and you're being mean to me and I can cope. And, you know, I do think it depends kind of where you come from, you know, where you are on that spectrum at that time. So
I think we also, sorry, Hannah, just to kind of barge in, we tend to talk about all this as if it's only a female problem, but men have hormones too, and theirs go up and down. And I always laugh when people say, oh, women, they're so emotional. Men are emotional. It's just their emotions come out in a different way. They rant and get angry. We tend to cry. So it's exactly the same, you know. So they do go through, they don't go through the same level of kind of fluctuations, but they still have hormones that mess them up.
Yeah.
They do think that men have have PMT, don't they? A kind of point in the month when they yeah. And don't you say, go on, Rara.
Well, no, I was just going to say, funnily enough, because we always moan, don't we, as feminists? We always say, "Oh, if this was a man's issue, it would have been researched long ago." And actually, on this front, I do wonder, because again, we're back to that kind of, is it admitting a weakness? And with men, if you say like, "Oh, you know, it's that time of the month, or you're having the male menopause, or your mood's dropped, or whatever," men really struggle because of toxic masculinity. They really struggle to deal with that or face the fact that there might be a weakness or an issue or something. So actually, I do wonder if there is some sort of male menopause or male PMT that is absolutely just not being discussed because of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, again, that's a punchline, isn't it? Always having the male menopause. Like, that's, why do we suppose we don't know so much about this, or we don't talk about it a lot? Meriesha, we'll come to you.
Is that I'm just listening? I'm just, you know, checking out the vibe. But yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I don't really know. And I come from it, you know, when I talk about ranting about female hormones, is because mine are a mess and they always have been. And, you know, the reality is that it is not spoken about at all, let alone when we get to menopause. Even from, you know, the point where you're at school and you're talking about periods, for example, it's very, you know, almost mechanical. This is what's going to happen. It's going to be this amount of time, you know, and that's it. You know, we don't talk about anything else after that. When, you know, I have, you know, all sorts of things that go on, you know, I have hot flushes and this, that, and the other. And, you know, not, you know, kind of, you know, adding to that then with things like, you know, contraception, the pill, etc. You know, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that kind of comes into play when we're talking about hormones. You know, and I think there is that element of weakness, but I think there's that everyone just kind of suffers in silence. You know, so there's what is right, what is wrong. I don't even know, you know, none of it, all of it, you know, there's that kind of conversation, but we just don't, because it isn't, you know, it's not even spoken about by parents, you know, it's that whole kind of just, you know, bring it into, you know, kind of conversation. And I think there has to be a monitoring of oneself, you know, without trying to sound too kind of holy about it. But you know what I mean? You have to know what's right for you to then be able to say whether something is not quite right or something's changed. And it's taken me till now, you know, to actually know what is right for me and my body, you know, because I'm not putting anything else in or anything along those lines, you know. So if I'd had this conversation when I was 18, you know, that kind of right me was the one that got migraines, the one that had this, the one that had that, you know, and things change. But I think you have to learn, you know, to accept, you know, what it is for yourself and to monitor what it is for yourself before you can, you know, start to do anything about it or even think about what's normal and what's not. And I think there is a little bit of change there because we are having more period conversations. There is more, you know, in terms of apps for monitoring your cycle and things like that. So I think there's a bit more, you know, of an understanding now or an acceptance of being able to talk about it. But I think, you know, we're way off, you know, the stuff that's not normal.
I think that's massive, actually, Reece. You've put your finger on it there, in that there is no such thing as normal. And you're right, you know, we're taught you will have a cycle every 28 days. And, you know, I haven't had a period since the 4th of August now. And I don't know whether that's the COVID jab.
COVID. Baby.
Oh, shut up. It's absolutely not. I don't know whether it's because I had the cold.
We don't do that.
We don't absolutely do that. But this is it. I don't know. And, you know, even if I went to the doctor and said, run some tests, they still wouldn't know. And there's a massive amount of women's reproductive health and bodies that is just like, absolutely no idea. And I don't think it's lack of research. I think it genuinely is that every single body is completely different, and everybody will react to different levels of hormones. And, you know, one person can have the pill and be regular as hell, and another person will have the pill and never have a period again. And it's crackers. And you know, the scope for understanding this is just... I don't know.
And I know that we've gone off on a tangent here, and I will bring it back around. But I think as well, like, when certainly my experience of being a teenager was, right, you're 16, 17, 18, you're going on the pill. Everyone went on the pill. And I didn't know until I came off it when I was 30 what a real period was like. I realized, like, you know, I didn't know what was normal because I'd just been taking the pill. And then I realized that actually, like, you know, the pill massively modifies my hormones and my cycle and everything. So I have no idea what's brewing for me.
But also,
I don't
Hannah,
know what's normal.
The other thing is that we don't know what's normal because our mother, our grandmother, and her mother, so the last 3 generations down our female line, have all had hysterectomies and therefore gone through the early menopause in their 30s. So we have absolutely no idea what is normal for the women in our family in terms of, you know, when we're likely to go through menopause. And I went to my doctor and I said this, and I was like, you know, I'm having symptoms of the early perimenopause and I'm 40 in December. And she was like, oh, don't be stupid. You're far too young. And I was like, but I am, you know, but my sleep has changed, but my smell has changed. I smelled it, you know, I don't stink, but I smell different than I used to smell. Yeah. You know, my periods, as I say, have stopped. You know, my moods have changed, everything. And I'm having hot flushes and blah, 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 blah. And to
sounds like pregnancy to me, mate.
You're going to keep banging this drum, aren't you?
I hear that so often though, Rachel. No, don't be silly, you're far too young. But you're not. We know. Did you know, by the way, today is World Perimenopause Day? I only found that out today. I do this for a job. I didn't even know it was a thing. Perimenopause, it's very common for perimenopause to start in sort of late 30s, early 40s. And we know our body. You know, we know our body better than a doctor does. If we're feeling something changing, notwithstanding what you said, Hannah, about, you know, the contraceptive pill is going to stabilize things and maybe disguise what's going on. But generally speaking, we know when things are not right. Going back to your question, Hannah, about why do we not talk about menopause as much? I think if you think about those other sort of milestones in your life, puberty is like coming of age, isn't it? It's a celebrated thing. You have a baby, we celebrate it. It's all great. You get to menopause. What you celebrating? Getting old? Getting close to death?
I'm old.
Yeah, I'm not dead.
Period.
I'm bloody here. I'm still here. I don't have to have a period.
So
I'm going to bloody celebrate.
Yeah, I genuinely think we need to move away from this idea that middle-aged women are somehow on the scrap heap. We've got, we could have half of our life yet to live. On Saturday, I was down in Kent celebrating my mum-in-law's 90th birthday. So I'm 55, she's 90. She went through her an induced menopause I think she was in her early 40s. She's had more than half of her life post-menopausal. And do you know what? She's a bloody pocket rocket. She's brilliant. And she's given so much of the last 45 years of value to the world. She's absolutely not over the hill. So I think we have to kind of, you know, we have anti-aging cream. So when you're 20, let's forget about anti-aging. Let's not pro-aging and actually look forward to something that's denied to so many women. We should, we need to kind of, I don't know, rebrand older women, I think.
Yeah, because they always say there's the 3 ages of womanhood, isn't there? The maiden, the mother, and the crone. And it absolutely was. You know, what is your role after motherhood? Well, you're absolutely right, Bev. Most of your life is going to be lived after motherhood. Most of your life is going to be lived as that woman who is doing the caring for the generation above, the caring for the generation below, and the generation below them once grandchildren come along, you know, assuming you have children. But, you know, absolutely, this narrative that the old woman does not have place. I mean, it was kind of smashed out, wasn't it, with, the witches and you could not be an older woman. It was heretic, and you were
Well, we're
obviously
scary, aren't we?
Yeah,
we're scary,
exactly.
because we've got all this
don't give a
wisdom,
shit
this
anymore.
knowledge, this don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
And we, we're, all of that kind of giving, that nurturing. I'm not saying we don't do that anymore, but we do it in a different way. And I think I speak to so many women in their late 40s and into their 50s who are realizing that actually now is their time, without kind of putting a cliche on it, now is my time, but starting businesses in their, and actually women in their 50s are the most successful entrepreneurs if you look statistically.
Yeah.
So,
I've got to wait another 20 years. 10 years.
Yeah, in your dreams, Reece.
All right.
Years.
Look at this young face. But yeah,
I think we've got to as well move away from the idea that menopause means old, because it doesn't. And actually we know so much now that menopause happens so much sooner. Perimenopause kicks in so much sooner, and it can happen at any age now. Kids coming through their puberty can go straight into menopause, so it's not an age thing.
Absolutely.
We've got to move away from that.
What about HRT? I just want to quickly ask this question, because again, this is another thing, because there was all the scare in the 80s and 90s, wasn't there, about HRT causing breast cancer, and that has been thoroughly debunked now. But it's one of those myths that hangs around. It's like the MMR jab and autism, isn't it? It's just one of those myths that will not die. So
with
again,
doctors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we, I'm going to take all the bloody hormones they'll give me. I'm happy to take them all. But again, this is a conversation we need to be having, isn't it? We need to be debunking that myth that the HRT patch is bad for you.
Yeah, I mean, actually, modern HRT for women starting HRT before they reach menopause. So menopause is just one day. I think you probably know that it's just one day. Perimenopause lasts a hell of a lot longer, but menopause itself is just one day. So if you start HRT before you reach that one day of menopause, your likelihood for breast cancer is lower than if you don't take it.
Yeah. And also all sorts of other things, because they think now that a lot of the reason that, dementia is so much more prevalent in women than it is in men at the moment. Osteoporosis is so much more. And they think now that is because of the lowered hormones, because women are living so much longer with such low levels of estrogen. And actually, if we all started on the HRT much sooner, there would be much less osteoporosis. We would all live longer, but we would live healthier for longer if we went on the HRT. So give me the bloody HRT patches.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument, because some people will say, well, we're not meant to have it. We're not meant to have it. So, you should be able to manage your hormones through lifestyle and all the rest of it. And I'm massively in favour of good lifestyle choices. But the reality is evolution's kind of overtaken nature. We're living, we're living so much longer. I think there's something going back to stats, and you've got to love stats because you're never sure whether they're right or not. But there's something about, I think I read, if we went back, say, 100 years, the average age for a woman to go through menopause then was 57. It's now 51. But the average life expectancy was 61, and now it's 82. So actually, women didn't need to worry too much about osteoporosis and Alzheimer's and dementia, because they were dead.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely, now we're not. They're still alive.
Also, women will quite happily take the pill for however many years. If that's not, the cats are fighting. If that's not messing with nature and hormones, I don't know what is. Let me just.
It's interesting, because a lot of women take the progesterone only pill, and the link with breast cancer comes from the progesterone, not the estrogen.
Oh, really? But there is just such a lot of misinformation about this. Back to my statistics. 1/3 of women who visited the GP weren't made aware of HRT, and I think it's suggesting that GPs feel as confused about it as the patients.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. There's plenty of information out there that's good quality, but if your GP trained if they went through their training between, say, 2000 and 2010, they'd have been taught that HRT was risky. So it's very hard to change a belief, isn't it, once that's what you've been taught. But actually, the benefits far outweigh the risks. And I'm with you, Rachel. I'll be on HRT until the day they put me in my coffin.
Yes.
Because the benefits, just, when you're talking about, my mum died of breast cancer, interestingly, so you'd think I'd be really against it. But when I think about the fear for me is Alzheimer's, the idea that my body might still be fit, but my brain is gone. So if I can protect against Alzheimer's, that for me is a big tick in the box. And not, not to mention all of the other benefits that it brings. So don't worry about HRT and fear it. The benefits outweigh the risks easily.
That's good to know. So what do you recommend, Bev, as employers or managers we can do to support women who are menopausal or perimenopausal?
I think we've just got, I use this 3 C's: compassion, common sense, and communication. So as long as we can approach, as long as managers can approach the conversations with compassion and a bit of common sense, have the conversations. Don't be afraid to talk about menopause. That's the key. And organisations have to make it easy for managers to be able to have those conversations. So good policies or guidelines. So managers are made aware of what the heck it is, because let's face it, we don't get taught. We've already talked about this. If women don't get taught about it, men have got no chance. So that awareness and good education in the workplace. But having not shying away from the conversation, I think, is the first thing. I'd rather a manager inadvertently said the wrong thing with good intent than said nothing and pretended there was no issue there.
Bev, do you think, can I just ask, sorry, as kind of managers of staff, do you think that we should take the initiative? So should it be something that, age 45, we sit down with our staff and say, right, when you start the menopause, you can come and talk to me? Or do we wait until, our staff come to us? Do we just have it as an open door policy?
I think that's a really good point to raise, actually, because what you've just done there is made an assumption that women at 45 onwards are going to be struggling, when in reality it could happen at any time throughout their career. And also, not all women have symptoms. Some women sail through their menopause and wonder what all the fuss is about. So I think, kind of answering your question and Hannah's, not making assumptions, checking your own biases, making sure that we're not stereotyping women in a certain bracket of, women of a certain age, therefore they're going to be menopausal. Interestingly, I was doing some work with a council quite recently, and she was just starting their training program, and she said, I think we'll just start with a colleague session to help women to understand. I don't want to kind of go in too hard with menopause to everybody, but maybe I'll just send out an invitation to some of the women who I think would benefit. I said, well, if you're wanting to make this an inclusive conversation and break down any taboo around it, actually what you're already doing in doing exactly that is labeling a
stigmatizing
a set of women who you've made an assumption will need to know this. So I think breaking down assumptions, checking your any stereotypes that you might have in your head, and being inclusive about the conversation. I think including men, younger employees, and everybody in the conversation makes it easier to talk about it.
Do you think, would you liken it, sorry, Rich, would you liken it to kind of how we act about mental health now? So, we kind of work very hard to reduce the stigma, to not make assumptions, to open the door, to, be aware and compassionate about it. Is that kind of like
exactly the same? I think menopause in the workplace is pretty much where mental health in the workplace was probably 10, 12 years ago. And there's still a lot of work to be done around mental health and assumptions and actually breaking down the stigma, but we've made huge inroads. I think we're just at the start of that journey with menopause, and I think there's so much overlap between menopause and mental health, because a lot of the menopause symptoms are mental health symptoms. They're psychological and emotional symptoms. So absolutely, huge amount of overlap.
Cool, thank you. Okay, well, we are way over time. But
We are.
this has been really interesting. So thank you very much for your time. And thank you to everybody that's watched. If you've managed to last this long, very well done. Any final thoughts or final words that anybody wants to throw in there? Oh, go on. What's this?
Is that all right? Can I be?
Yeah, go for it.
Of course,
Absolutely.
yes, absolutely.
So when I started with my menopause symptoms at age 50, I struggled to find good information. There was loads of stuff out there, but it was either really confusing, really heavily medical, or it was downright bullshit, to be honest. There was so much stuff out there that didn't make sense. So I thought, if I can't find it, I'll write it. So my book, The Business of Menopause, A Guide for Working Women, you see that?
Brilliant.
Awesome.
It's out on the 18th of October, so it's available now pretty much for pre-order. And it's just a really simple guide to everything that I had to learn to try and demystify the whole process. So I talk about what it is, when it happens, why it happens, hormones, lifestyle factors that can help. I talk about HRT, all of the different types, and how can you choose what you want. So that's around. That was a blatant plug.
No, blatant
love it.
Will you put the link in the chat box afterwards, please, Bev? If you go to the Facebook page and find the video and put the link in there, then people can buy it.
Yeah, is it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. It's also in Waterstones, I was told, which is quite exciting. It's out there, so it's got Amazon's the easiest, isn't it? I think it's out on Amazon at the minute, although it's not meant to be because I pushed the wrong button and it went live before it was meant to. But it's long.
Blame the menopause,
but you can't get it now. It was menopause, absolutely.
Brilliant,
love it.
I just have one final word. I would just like to say, when we mentioned before about, we have to have this conversation with men as well. We are going to have to actively encourage the men into the conversation. So, because I know recently when I've run my kind of business networking groups, and I've said that, we're going to talk about periods at this one or tackling period poverty in the Valley. All the men don't come, and it's just women that turn up. And we've got the next meeting is about, getting businesses to tackle period poverty in the Valley, and I've purposely put on the email, men, please come, we need you in this conversation. So when you say we're not to exclude, we are going to have to actively not to exclude men, as in force them into the room, otherwise they will bow out of that conversation. So I think bear that in mind as businesses when we're trying to get people involved in this conversation.
Maybe tell them that the meeting's about something else.
Yes, it's about biscuits. About biscuits, boys. Come along.
Biscuits and puppies.
So random.
I will say though, when I first started doing what I do, I made the assumption that men wouldn't be interested at all. I think if we can get the relevance for them across. They're really engaged and they want to know, because they're never going to experience it. Well, most aren't. Some will.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think, my final point on it would be exactly that, is that it's an inclusive conversation. But I think there has to be, like, Bev said, just now, that it's got to be relevant. And, I wouldn't want to go to a meeting about menopause where women are just going to moan all day. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Right. That I'm not interested in that. So how can we expect anyone else to be? So I think it has to be a, kind of open conversation, but also a little bit what's in it for me for being into that conversation. And work and home, we're more mesh than we ever have been, so you learn something in one place, you take it to the next place. So I think it's great that it's to champion that open conversation.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and just to kind of top that off, Shooting the Shit is open to men as well. We have got some men in there. My husband watches these under duress. So Dave, I very much hope you're watching. Otherwise you'll be in big bother. So, encourage people to encourage the men in your life to join Shooting the Shit, to talk about these issues with you, and not just menopause, all the other kind of women's issues that we're facing. So awesome. Right. Thank you so much, you guys. If you're listening on, what do I have to say now, Rachel? If you can get this on a podcast, I'll put all the notes in the whatever and blah blah blah. YouTube, like and subscribe, etc. etc.
Subscribe below, guys.
All the gubbins, all that stuff.
There we go. Expertly done, Hannah.
Thank you so much. Right, we have to wave now. For the
we have to wave, and I will start. Ready?
Wave.
Wave, Meriesha.
Bye.